What is up, PCP Army? How is everybody doing? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, and tonight it's time for a PCP conversation. It's Rockin Robbie with Brianiac. Let's bring him in. Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, everybody. Station.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention the room. I'm going to avoid that tonight.
Well, I felt like I matched the color, though, pretty well. No?
Bruh, look at that. Brian picked the exact right shade of color of shirt to wear to make his vomit-looking room make sense. Now, remember, Brian, you mentioned it. All right.
Okay.
So tonight, it's time for a PCP conversation. But before we get into that, a couple quick announcements. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Central Time, it's PCP movie night. My Bloody Valentine, the 1981 quote-unquote classic. Let's just call it that. I enjoyed this film, and I'm excited to talk about it with you live here with the excitable PCP crew for Valentine's weekend. And we're going to keep the Valentine's horror rolling because Saturday night on Dylan's Horror Show, we've got a movie review of the 2001 not-so-classic Valentine. That was Dylan's pick, not mine, okay? In fact, I suggested to Dylan that he do My Bloody Valentine because we were going to do Black Cinema all month. And then he was like, no, I want to do this Valentine movie from 2001. And I was like, all right, then we'll do My Bloody Valentine. Continuing the trend of us picking a really good holiday-themed horror movie, and then Dylan the very next night picking a subpar one. But right. Also, we have Ron V confirmed to come on the show Thursday, March 4th at noon Central Time. It's a little bit early, but he's over the seas. He's overseas. Anyway, but the focus on right now is Rich Douek because he is the writer of PCP fan favorites, Road of Bones, Sea of Sorrows, which is currently being published, The Wailing Blade, Gutter Magic, and more, because just like a John Lee's type situation, I just found out today he did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles work, and I'm blown away. Everybody, give a mad station, and welcome to Rich Douek.
Station. What's up, guys?
How are you doing? Oh, yeah, there you go. You're tight, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We get the idea.
Camera's a little close. Yeah.
How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing great. Thank you for being here. For anybody who's not in the know, and most PCP Army members are in the know, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
So name's Rich Douek. I'm a writer, writing comics mostly. Got my start with a series called Gutter Magic. That was in like 2016, and since then, like you mentioned, I've written Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Wailing Blade, and just more recently, Road of Bones and Sea of Sorrows. I've been getting into writing horror, which is pretty cool for me. I kind of came into this as like a like more of like a fantasy science fiction type of writer. And, but yeah, I don't know. I took to horror like a duck to water. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I enjoy it a lot now.
Were you a fan of horror before? Is that something you wanted to dive into?
Yeah, I was a fan. I just never really kind of, I guess like thought of it as a genre, like I would write in or really be good at, I don't think there's any particular reason why. It's just sort of like, I don't think of myself as like a romance writer either, but who knows, like maybe if I took a crack at it, I could write
you never know.
a romance novel. But
romance comics used to dominate the industry. You could bring that back.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, like there's just something about it that I really kind of took to. Like I love the fact that you can, when you're writing horror, you can kind of indulge in I guess kind of like your darker kind of impulses with and it just makes it like better. It's like, every time I'm like, wow, could this be a little too fucked up? It's like, no. You want it to be that fucked up. So
exactly. Wes Craven, who I'm a big fan of, used to always say that, because people used to always be like, oh, you got to be sick and twisted to come up with this stuff. And he goes, no, this isn't all of us. The thing is, I'm acknowledging it and I'm working through it in my art. And I'm not like suppressing it so that it rears its ugly head like way down the road. And it's just is absolutely terrible, So
yeah. It's like, I can write about like, murders and cannibals and stuff without having to go to jail for it. So
yeah, you can think
of a win in my book.
You can think of what is the emotional journey of a person who decides to eat somebody and not act. You can experience it, and like kind of like I remember when I was a kid, I watched Alive, that movie where the plane crash survivors and they had to like eat the dead people.
Yeah,
And that kind of scarred me, man. I got a lot of vibes from that. Road of Bones. Road of Bones was a fantastic book, homie. By the way,
thank you, man.
Fantastic. You guys are really knocking out the park with Sea of Sorrows. By the way, y'all, Sea of Sorrows is going on right now, 3 issues out, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah,
if you like Road of Bones, you'll love this one.
We got 2 more to go. Road of Bones is 4 issues, but we got a few more people to murder here, so we needed an extra issue to get through them all. Sea of Sorrows, it's one of the things like you kind of look back on your work as like a writer, and I think it's really one of the best things I've ever written. And I'm not saying I'm like a great, the best writer or whatever. It's just like on like a personal level. Mm-hmm. Like I was really kind of taking everything I learned from writing Road of Bones and write, horror and like building that atmosphere of like dread and stuff and trying to find like new ways to come at it. So I'm super proud of it. I'm super proud of Alex and Justin, my artist and letterer, my teammates on there, because they've kind of upped their game as well. So very proud of the series, and I can't wait for you guys to read the next 2 issues because things really go off the rails. Like, it's like it kind of like been like the way I like to do these is, I try to build a lot of atmosphere in terms of like, tension and like this like feeling of like dread and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
that's what we've been doing for like the first 3 issues is sort of like moving the chess pieces into place, and it's like, what's going on? Who's like, who's gonna, and then it's like in issues 4 and 5 are like when all that tension kind of starts getting released and all hell breaks loose. So I'm really excited for people to check out the next couple of issues.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. I was wondering what was the inspiration for like the setting for Sea of Sorrows, because it's really cool. I thought World War I, and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I think it was like when we finished up Road of Bones, we were sort of like, what do we do next? Because Alex and I, we definitely like wanted to keep working together, and we didn't necessarily want to do like Road of Bones 2 because I feel like there was a lot of stuff we liked about how it ended, and like there was some ambiguity, and we didn't really want to kind of catch up with these characters later and explain too much or kind of like ruin what we had. So we were like, well, we liked the horror stuff, we liked the psychological stuff, we liked the history, so let's try to find something else that checks all those boxes. And Alex had showed me like a pinup he did that was basically, it was like a diver in one of these old time diver suits with like the helmets like we have in the book that was like wrestling with a giant squid. And I was like, that's a fucking amazing image. So like, let's do something underwater. So like, I'm thinking diving, then I was thinking submarines. Then I was like, okay, well, you basically have like 2 big wars that had submarines. You had World War I and World War II. And I don't know, it's just like, I've seen a lot of World War II stuff. It's like, it's not that it wouldn't have made a good story. It's not that you can't tell a good World War II story. It's just that there's a lot of them. And I was thinking there weren't that many stories kind of like with World War I and the aftermath of World War I. So that just was more intriguing for me. So then I just started digging, and like I found this story of a German sub, the Bremen, that was actually a blockade runner, and they were trying to get through the British blockade to get to America to buy war material, to buy weapons, basically. And this was before America chose a side in World War I. Like there was like sort of like this period where they were neutral. America was neutral, and so this sub was meant to run the blockade, but it just disappeared. There's no like, they figure it probably got sunk, but there's no official record of how it got sunk or whatever. And I was like, aha, there's a little hole in history that we could fill in with some really cool horror stuff, you know? So that's basically kind of how the idea came about. And then, you know, just Alex and I go back and forth a lot on ideas, creatures, and monsters that they, like, you know, landed with the siren, who's like the monster in this book.
Yeah, I'm a big mythology fan, so I really like that you went with the whole siren thing. And what is it about history? Okay, so you got these other books. You've basically created these whole new worlds with Gutter Magic and Wailing Blade, right? And then when you go into the horror vibe, you kind of dig into historical. Are you a fan of history? Like, what was it about history that you wanted to use to influence your horror writing, if anything?
I'm a fan of history, I think, as much as anybody. You know, like I could like watch stuff on History Channel or like whatever it is. But the thing with the Road of Bones was that like I basically kind of stumbled on the stories of like the Russian Gulag and stuff like that when I was researching like a science fiction book I was thinking about that had to do with a prison break, and I was just like, all right, well, let me research some prison breaks, you know, like Alcatraz and stuff like that. And the more I read about the Gulag and the situation there, the more I realized I was like, this is like really interesting and exciting, and it doesn't need like it doesn't need a whole lot of world building to draw people in, because I know I learned a lot just reading. There are two books in particular. There's one called The Gulag Archipelago, and then there was a book called A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. One is a novel, one is more like a nonfiction book, but it's just like there's a lot of history there that I was not aware of because, you know, I'm an American, and when we you know, like the Cold War going on, there wasn't a lot of like kind of cross culture with like, you know, Russian history. So I was like, this is new to me. This is super interesting. And I think other people might find it interesting too. And maybe I don't need to kind of take all that and cloak it in some sort of, in a fantastic world that like I make up myself. You know, I was like, it just seemed to me like it doesn't need it, and it makes it all more kind of like impactful to realize that like, yeah, in Road of Bones, it's like things do go off the rails. There is a supernatural element. There is like, you know, weird stuff going on, but you know, there's just something really interesting to me about, and you know, forgive me because I'm going to get a little meta here, but it's like, but you know, when you're talking about horror, like as a genre, it's like we're making up all these things that are horrific and terrible and scary, and it's like, yet in our own history, in real life, there are things that are even more horrific and terrible and scary that really happened. So I think like there was just something really interesting to me about like kind of taking those two things and putting them together, like taking like, you know, like the real world history of something and something horrific and a made up kind of folklore horror and smashing them together. Like you talking about Road of Bones, like the first 3 pages were like, you know, there's an old man working, he collapses, and the guard like kills him and shoves him into the road, and they pave him over. That really happened. You know, like there is a real Road of Bones in Russia, and it's called the Road of Bones because so many people were dying in these camps, and the ground, the tundra, was like frozen solid. So they couldn't really afford to dig graves for people because that would take them away from their work, and like they couldn't do it. Yeah. So they were digging the ditch for the road anyway, so they just buried them in the road. Oh, and that's crazy to me.
That's so really creepy too. That's right? Like perfect for horror, you know. And I think wow. I think grounding horror is that's what, like, when we check out something sci-fi or fantasy, we're usually ready to be like, we're going to let go of the idea that this is in our world, right? But for most parts, like, people want horror to be grounded, because the stuff that happens can be very fantastical and crazy, but I think the idea of horror is to kind of scare ourselves, explore these darker themes, and the more grounded in reality that is. And dude, what is more tragic? What is more horrifying than the history of mankind? I mean, honestly, like, you could pull from all that.
Yeah, and history is something that, like, we kind of tend to, like, whitewash a little bit, I feel. Like there's a lot of things that in our past that we kind of gloss over. And so it's kind of interesting to me to kind of play with that too, where it's like, a lot of, like, what we think of as accepted history has a little bit of a fictional element to it. And that, like, the people who are writing it told the story the way they wanted to tell it. So there's something kind of interesting to me about telling a story in history. And it's like, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. I don't know. I'm not trying to say that there's, like, cannibal ghosts on the tundra or, like, sirens in the sea.
I think that is very possible, though, Rich. That's just me, though. I think it's very possible.
But there's just this sort of, like, a lot of stuff swirling around in my head about, like, just kind of, like, history as, like, a story, and, like, telling my own, like, stories, like, in history, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate when things like that, because it also like, especially these two stories here are not stories that, like, periods of history that I have much familiarity with. So it force gets me to go find and hunt a bunch more information. I really like that. I kind of had the Wailing Blade was on a Comics Tribe, and just had a kind of a maybe off the wall question. Are there any, like, happy stories in Comics Tribe that are printed by them? Because some of John Lee's stuff, and I was just throwing that out there. I just was like,
definitely not for me or John.
Okay.
or Ryan Lindsay either. He's also can get pretty dark. But I don't know. Like, it's not that, like, we're all a bunch of, like, sick puppies or anything. I think it's just, like, what we like. Tyler James, the publisher of Comics Tribe, he also does a children's book series, Sea of Cthulhu. Sea is for Cthulhu. And my friend Joe Mulvey, the artist on Wailing Blade, did a really cute children's book called Mummy's Always Right.
Man. I gotta read that.
Yeah,
I gotta find that.
It's funny. It's really cute. It's like the kind of, like, I guess, like, Little Rascals version of, like, the Universal monsters. There's, like, a little mummy, a little vampire, a little sea creature and stuff. It's a super cute book.
That was called Mummy's Always Right. Is that what you said?
Mummy's Always Right. Yeah,
I'm getting that.
I mean, my kids love it.
Right.
But yeah, so like, I don't know if the happy children stuff is kind of penance for Sync and Wailing Blade. But yeah, it's I think like Comics Tribe as, like, an independent publisher, it's really a lot about, like, just kind of, like, what we as creators like we're basically like we're doing the books we want to do, more than anything. It never kind of enters into, like, I guess, like, a different, like, an example, like, I guess, like, when I was working on, like, TMNT and trying to pitch a story, it's like, well, we can't really do this, we can't really do that, because the stories I did with TMNT, stuff got accepted, but I mean, I pitched, like, a bunch of stories, and it's like, for whatever reason, a lot of them got turned down, and I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying, it's like, there's, like, certain things you need to consider, I guess, when you're working on TMNT, or even, like, with like a independent or creator-owned book with certain publishers. They might want they might say like, this really isn't like something like a good fit for our company or whatever. Like the thing I love about working with Comics Tribe is that like it's just like 100% like books we want to do. Like there's never been a time where Tyler's like, oh, you can't do that, or
Yeah.
I mean, like Sync, John's book. Like John and I bounce scripts off each other a lot, so I get to read a lot of Sync
Nice.
before it comes out.
You
let me
lucky bastard.
let me tell you guys, the stuff he's got coming up is going to be insane. But like I'm just saying, like he's like John can basically kind of like do what he wants, like with Sync. Like there's no
I'm pretty sure like the IDW guys were like, no, Rich, you can't kill Splinter and have him paved over in like a road after he escapes from a gulag that Splinter sent him to. I mean, that Shredder sent him to. Yeah, I'm sure you're like, really?
Oh, you're gonna love this. I think Joe Mulvey is listening on the feed. He's texting me. He's like, John Lee's The Standard is a classic superhero story. Epic is a teenage superhero who loses all his powers when he's around a beautiful girl. So yeah, Comics Tribe does do stuff. I'm selling them short.
There you go. Thanks for watching, Joe. Go. We love your work. I love your work.
I love you. I love you, Joe. Thank you for being here. Support. But yeah, like we I think like that's kind of one of the benefits of working with like a more independent publisher than like say like your big five like indie publishers or whatever. It's like you get a lot more leeway and you get to kind of put things out that are a little bit more closer to what you envisioned.
I got
you.
For those not in the know, why don't you explain exactly kind of what Comics Tribe is? Because it's a little bit of like a workshop and a publisher, right? Something like that.
Well, I think it's kind of it's evolved over the years. When it started out, it was very much like a web community of like this is like a place where creators have resources where if you're wondering like how to get started in comics, how to do comics, how to create a comic. Comics Tribe was just sort of like a website you could go to, and there was like you could submit your scripts to get them reviewed. You could read articles about how to do certain things. You could write them, and then I think just over time, it kind of developed more into like closer to like a traditional publisher. Yet Tyler, who the guy who runs it, got really into Kickstarter. So what he did was he started. What is it called? It's Comics Launch. Okay. So Comics Launch, and it's dedicated to like any question you have as like a comics creator about like running your campaign on Kickstarter. Comics Launch has probably done a show about it, and they have like hours of footage that you can like read and do research. So kind of like over time, it kind of developed into that, and it became a very kind of Kickstarter focused publisher because Tyler is doing these books on Kickstarter and finding a lot of success. So he really kind of dug into like systems and trends on Kickstarter, like because there's a lot out there, and it's sort of like really easy to become a victim of your own success, because it's like people are making money on Kickstarter, so it's like here come like all the people trying to make money off of those people, and some of them are scammers, some of them are like offering a service sincerely, but it might not really be worth it. Do you need a fulfillment partner? Do you need there's a lot of services that say, oh yeah, we'll we'll blast your Kickstarter out on our social media. We'll get you followers. We'll get you pledges. It's like, how do you know whether those places are legit or not? Tyler actually like digs into those questions and does like a podcast about it and puts together groups and stuff like that. So it's like Comic Shop has kind of evolved from like a publisher you could like maybe like submit to, or like a traditional publisher that you're gonna find alongside like in your comic shop every Wednesday, like let's say like a Scout or like let's just say Scout, who is a great publisher regardless. I'm just saying it's like they're like, part of their business model is very focused on the direct market. It's like Tyler kind of pulled away from that and he's in Kickstarter, and we still get stuff out to comic stores because that's where the people that love comics are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I mean, y'all kickstarted Wailing Blade, right?
Yeah, we did. We kickstarted the first issue, and then we just recently last year kickstarted the collected edition. We did like a deluxe hardcover, and it's great because you get to kind of like connect with your fans, and you get to have like, you ask them like, hey, do you think this is a cool idea for the book? And they're like, yeah, this is amazing. So you kind of like get a little more interaction, whereas like with working with like like an IDW or like other publishers like that, it's a little, there's a little bit more of like a barrier where like this is what we're doing and like let's hope it works out. Hope it's like Kickstarter, it's like kind of all that stuff happens in like real time, and it's exhausting, but it's still it is pretty cool.
I bet we've had quite a few people on the shows during their Kickstarter runs, and all I hear from people is like, this is the craziest, most exhausting thing I've ever done is be involved in promoting a Kickstarter for my book.
Yeah, well, it's like you're watching that ticker, you're like come on, right? like progress bar, like let's get funded. It's gotta be stressful.
That's gotta be stressful.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you one thing that appeals to me as a fan and as a retailer when it comes to Kickstarter books is foil and chromium covers. Like, so you let the publishers know next time you're in their ear, Rich, like let them know that like the Rockin Robbie said it's real. People love this shit, so we should do it. Like seriously, when Wailing Blade, when I got it and it came in and it had that foil logo on it, I'm like, well, I'm buying this. It's like 100% just buying it, not even going to happen. One thing I didn't ask you before we started, I forgot, because we always ask everybody, how much time do you have tonight, Rich? Because I have a habit of going way too long sometimes. So
oh no, you can have me all night.
Oh man,
I'm good.
All right, nobody ever knows what they're getting into, right, Brian, when they say that?
I might have to call out at like midnight, but yeah,
okay. We're good then. I think we're good.
As long as you want me, yeah. I'm
good. The other thing is, we had a great question in the chat from Travis M., member of the PCP Army. Says, Rich, who influenced you to write comics, and what comic series are your favorite of all time?
I think like I kind of have two sets of influences, because like I read comics growing up, like a lot of people did, and then I sort of got off of them for a while when I was in college and like early 20s, but then I got back into them. So like I think like my childhood influences were guys like Chris Claremont, Bill Mantlo. There's like Bill Mantlow's like Hulk, Incredible Hulk run, like really is like kind of blew my mind when I was a kid, like because there's a lot of like kind of deep stuff going on in there as to like like why the Hulk is the Hulk, and like why rage
stuff, right?
It's like kind of like mid 80s, I guess.
Okay, mid 80s.
Maybe
okay.
like he may have started in the 70s. I don't know, but when I encountered it, it was kind of like the mid 80s when I was like buying these in like 7-Eleven and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led to me getting into the X-Men, and Chris Claremont, obviously like a legend, but I think like that's kind of really where it all started for me, like as a kid. And then, like I said, I went to college, discovered booze, girls, a lot of kind of stuff, and
we've been there.
did not read comics for like a while, but then I kind of got back into them when I was older, and then it was kind of like the more mature stuff, which was like Sandman, The Invisibles, Transmetropolitan. So I guess we're talking like Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison, Warren Ellis, like guys like that were really kind of like what broadened my mind and made me realize like there was a lot more to comics than just like guys in tights beating each other up. Like you could do science fiction, you could do horror, like Sandman, you could do stories that like make you like cry and laugh and like experience like as deeply as you would like a novel,
Yeah.
or like a really good movie. So I think like that stuff just really kind of opened my mind. And I guess like it's hard to like pin it down to like my favorite series ever, but like like I would say like all those that I mentioned, like like Sandman's really big in my mind, The Invisibles, Transmetropolitan, Hellboy,
we're best friends now, Rich. Just so you know, best friends. You just like named like my favorite comic books of all time. So thank you so much for that.
no, my pleasure, man.
You said The Invisibles, man. Like just I feel like me and Brian are alone in this very loosely connected string of people that really love and appreciate The Invisibles. So it's like a yearly read for me. So I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah,
and yes,
it's like Grant Morrison. Like I understand he's like an acquired taste for some people, and he is a real kind of like personality, like in and of himself. But it's like, yeah, there's a lot of like really good stuff in The Invisibles, and like stuff that kind of just makes you think about like humanity and like the cosmos, like stuff like that. And I just love stuff like that. So.
Oh my goodness! Every time I read that book, I think of something new. And there's a cat that works for us at our shop, at the comic shop, and he's kind of new to comics. He's a nerd, like we all are, but he's kind of new to comics. And so yesterday we were talking about Morrison, and I looked at him. I was like, "Have you ever read a Grant Morrison book?" And he goes, "No." And he's like digging some really good stuff right now, including I think Sea of Sorrows. So he's like watching the channel. He's like taking recommendations. I was like, "Bro, I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to give you your first Grant Morrison comic." And I sent him home with We 3. He came back today.
We 3 is amazing.
He was like, that was one of the best things I've ever read.
Yeah, you talk about crying. That one, that one actually I read that on the airplane the first time, and I was actually crying on the airplane while I was reading. I was like in public reading a comic book, clearly crying. I absolutely love that book.
We 3 is one of those books that like it's cliche to say like everyone should read it, but like like everyone should read it. And I don't think you can come away from reading that book thinking that like comic books are like kiddie stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because it's a shame that there are still so many people. I see this every day. They think comics are still just like superheroes. And there are people that come in my shop every day that still go, I didn't think they still made these things. And it really makes me, and this is this is completely veering off subject, and who cares? But it's really a shame to me, I think, because look at how successful Kickstarters are and how important it is. Like the idea that you send personal emails out to comic shops and to reviewers and things like that, right? Like, where is the marketing backup from some of these companies? Like, it feels, especially with the big two, like, where is this? Like, you've got the biggest movies of the year. You can't put one thing about a comic book in it, like, Trinity Crisis coming soon or whatever you want to put up there. Like, you can't do that. Is that what are your thoughts on that? The idea of the publisher's responsibility, because I feel like a lot of it's laid on creators now.
Yeah, a lot of it is on us, but on like one level, I kind of do understand it, but on another, I think like, you could always do more. You know what I mean? It's like I don't resent having to do it, but it's just like I think about it a lot. Like why? How is it that like Avengers is, you know, like the Avengers movies are like probably like 4 of like the top 5, you know, top 10, like you know, earning movies,
going, right?
Biggest franchise going. Like, how is it that like you could have like the #1 movie making billions of dollars, and like, and the Avengers comic is, you know, no slouch, but it's not making billions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and like what I just kind of keep coming back to is that it's like, I think there's like just an element of it where like it's just 2 different things. Like watching a movie and reading a comic are 2 different things, and you're not always going to kind of get the crossover. Like, you know, I think what gets a lot of people invested in comics is really connecting with characters and wanting to like kind of, you know, experience like the history and the, you know, more of it. It's like, you know, whereas like with like a movie, it's like, yeah, you know, this is like a fun like ride to go on for a few hours and then I'm done.
Yeah.
So like I do understand on some level why it doesn't translate like 1-to-1. You know what I mean? Like why you're not going to, every single person that goes to the movie theater is not going to like then go into the comic shop and buy the comic.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they want to like see more adventures of Captain America or whatever it is. That being said, it's like, you know, yeah, there's just some sort of like basic kind of marketing stuff that I think like, you know, the big companies especially, and like any company really could be doing more in terms of like, you know, trying to like bring people into the hobby. It's just the problem is that everything in this industry is like super tight. You know what I mean? Like there's like if I was to like personally like for one of my series, if I was to hire like let's say the same type of PR person that like a movie would hire for them, it would probably cost me more than it cost me to make the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably cost me more than the publisher would cost them to print the book. So it's like there's just not a lot of like money, like to burn in the industry to kind of like spend on that. So it's like, you know, for something like that to happen, you really need like kind of like a bunch of people to kind of get together and like either do something like Got Milk, you know, it's like Got Comics, you know what I mean? Like,
right. No, I think you could get like Marvel and DC and maybe even Image to throw in on an ad campaign like that. And I understand with the smaller publishers, I actually think companies like Boom and IDW and Vault do, and Scout even, and Source Point, Comics Tribe, they do a really great job of doing the marketing on Instagram, on Twitter, on all the social medias, right? And they hit a lot of people, and there's a great community there. And I love being in that, right? But like, it's just the crazy thing to me is like with Marvel, like literally making the biggest movies, and you just can't put one like 10-second thing to be like Black Widow, the series. Like they do these trailers. We see comic trailers for Marvel all the time. Can you not just be like, we're going to put this in front of our next big movie? Like a lot of people still don't. It's just a crazy thing. I was just curious.
Yeah, they can have that stuff on Disney Plus.
Yeah, you know,
right?
no,
I mean, this is making Disney so much money, and I'm not saying that it's going to bring hundreds of thousands of people into comic shops, right? I'm not saying that at all, but it's just, it's so crazy to me that Marvel Studios doesn't seem to give a shit about Marvel comics. I don't know, except for as a think tank, almost as a way, you know, like you guys come up with the ideas and we'll kind of take from there. And that, I think that's the only thing really keeping them going sometimes is that it's just coming up with ideas for movies and TV shows. God Tank had a really, I'm sorry, real quick. Sorry. God Tank said, by a show of station hands, who has cried from a comic? And I just want to show everybody all this. Like, this is real. This is real. Yeah. We all do that. Some people don't want to admit it, and it's okay. I cry from comics much more than I think I should as a grown-ass man, but it happens.
We did it last month. So, I mean.
What comic did I cry from last month?
David Andrews.
Oh, my God. No kidding. That's right. We had DB on the show, and like his self-published thing. What was it?
The Wild Uncertain.
The Wild Uncertain. Oh my God, that thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Cry like a fucking baby.
DB's a great writer and a great dude regardless.
Yeah, he super is.
But yeah, no, it's like comics just I think has this like power in a way, because like, you know, it requires, because comics I think require a little more work from you, like when you're engaging with them, than like a movie or a TV show does. Like a movie or a TV show, you can kind of just like zone out and like watch it.
Yeah.
You know, like a video game, like let's say, you know, not that emotional moments can't happen, but like, you know, you're kind of like focused on playing the game or whatever. And like comics have this thing where it's like, you know, you're kind of like, you're looking at still panels and you're looking at these moments, and it's like, it takes a little bit of effort for your, even if you're not really realizing it, it takes a little effort for your brain to kind of fill in the moments in between, like, you know, this kind of stuff that's happening between panel 1 and between panel 2. So it's like, they just engage you, you know, it's like, you kind of like, when you're really into a comic, you're into a comic, you know, it's like, it like requires like something from you. And then I think that's kind of like how it kind of can get you emotionally, because it's like you're investing time and like mental effort into it. So, you know, you're getting stuff out of it as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point about the idea that comic books require participation from the audience. You go to watch a movie and you just sit there and you just let it wash over you. Same with TV shows, same with music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can participate as much as you want. You can think about as much as you want. And there are plenty of films and TV shows and albums that are incredibly challenging and complex to dig into. But you're right, with a comic book, like it's a very active type thing as a reader. Like, you got to first of all choose, like you do with the movie, but like you just don't let it wash over you. You participate in the flow of the book. Now, and you know this obviously as a creator, but the writer and the artist and the, you know, everybody else involved, they can kind of try to control the pacing, but it's up to you how long you linger. Like, I know people that it takes 20 minutes to read a modern comic. And they're like, I can't believe you read them so fast. I'm like, I can't believe you read them so slow. And they're like, why linger on it? I'm like, I know, but I miss a lot of stuff on my first read. And I always have to go back and reread. And it's a great thing. And it's a different experience to read, say, Dark Knight Returns as quickly as possible. And it's a much different experience to read it dwelling on each individual panel, right? That will take you a long time, but worth it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
that's
know,
why I think it's oh, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say that's what I was going to say. It's like that's why I love the medium so much. It's because you know, the visual aspects of it and the pacing, and you can kind of control it. But you know, typically what I do is I don't try to read it as fast as I can, but I try to, you know, read it steady, so you know, it's getting the beats and everything like that. But then, like, you know, but since you can kind of control the action, it's like really great. But what we were talking earlier about getting people into comics, that, you know, that to me can be one of the daunting things. So sometimes I tell people, it's like, you know, if you can get like Comixology on an app or something like that, it'll actually guide you through those things. Cause like, you know, you can, you know, I don't know, you can just kind of tell it's like, if you didn't grow up reading comics, it can be a little confusing. And effort you're talking about can be daunting, right? You know, and confusing and stuff like that. So
yeah, you know, it's like, you know, I think this is also kind of where, like, you know, letters are really like kind of like the unsung heroes of comics. You know, they're always kind of like listed last in the credits and stuff like that. But you know, like
Justin's a great letterer, by the way.
Justin's amazing. I have no complaints about Justin. Dude is like, he's super talented, super easy to work with, nice guy. Like I love working with Justin. But I'm saying, it's like, you know, if you're a creator and you've never, like, you're not a letterer, like if you're like an artist or a writer or whatever, and it's like you try to letter a comic, that's when you realize like how much of an art and how important, and a science, and how important the lettering is. Because, you know, from the outside, it's just like, oh yeah, whatever, you just draw circles and arrows and you know, and fills it in, copies and pastes from the script. But it's not. It's like it's about leading your eye around the page. It's about, like the best letters can work with the script and the art to like get you as the reader where we all want you to be at the time we want you to be there,
Yes.
So but like you said, it's like if you're not familiar with comics reading from your childhood, or it's not something that you've like sort of like picked up like over the years, like just starting out, it's like you might look at that page and be like, where do I even start? Like I felt that too getting into reading manga, because you're reading manga, it's backwards from Western books, and it's like, and I'm like, okay, well, I know I have to turn the pages backwards, but like, do the panels flow backwards as well, or am I reading them like the regular way on the, you know what I mean? Like it took me a little while to kind of understand what I was looking at and follow the story, know? So
there's still people that come to my shop today like, oh, it's not done like the other way. I don't want it then. Like it's so counterintuitive to what we're brought up for reading comic books for like, however long. So
yeah. I still when I'm when I'm reading manga, I still like, even if I've been reading it for 30 pages, I'll still mix up a couple and be like, God dang it. It's like,
and then you go back a couple of times and you're like, oh, okay,
I totally missed that reveal. Well, Ryan's been getting into some manga lately, I know, right?
Yeah. I'm started 20th Century Boys, so pretty good one. So
I just started Uzumaki from Junji Ito, and we have John Lees to thank for that, for constantly singing his praises. So I don't know. The next horror thing I write might be just like completely off the rails.
Yeah, we talked about that when we talked to him. That's the only Junji Ito book I read, except for the one that he wrote about the Cat Diary, which I highly recommend that one, by the way. And we talked to John about that, and I noticed he's read it, by the way. So it's super funny. I think it's better to read some of his horror before you read that, though, just to get that that kind of contrast going there. Yeah. So I hope you enjoy it. That Uzumaki.
I am so far. Like it's a chunky thing, so I'm working my way through it. I just started, but I am liking it a lot so far.
Oh, good deal. Well, we're big music fans over here too. Do you listen to music while you write, or is there just like specific types of music that you like to lean into when you're writing? Or?
Yeah, I think it varies with the project. Like a lot of times, I think with when I'm like actually like writing, like scripting, I like instrumental music a little more than stuff with lyrics. Like if it's gonna have lyrics, it's got to be a song that I know so well that like I'm not even paying attention to the lyrics, because it's like I'm trying to like arrange words in my head, so the less words that are happening around me just make it that much easier. But I listen, like when I'm writing, I listen to a lot of movie soundtracks and things like that. Recently, a lot of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross have been doing a lot of really cool soundtracks, like the Watchmen stuff, and they did The Social Network and Soul. I think that was like probably the most recent thing they did. But
I heard they did Soul. That blows me away.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like,
wow.
Well, like when it was like the 90s, I was like, Nine Inch Nails was one of my favorite bands. And if you had told me that like in the future Trent Reznor is going to do the music for a children's movie, I would be like, you're a liar. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. Released
Never
by Disney.
In a million years. Yeah. Like a Disney movie? Like, are you kidding me?
If you would have told Trent that in the 90s, he would have been like, bullshit.
I'm sure. It's like, are we going to get like Ministry doing the next one? Like, I don't know. Like, but yeah, like stuff like that. I think like movie soundtracks is just are a really good fit for writing. I think because they're, you know, when you're talking about like scores, it's like they're most scores are meant to like create a mood. So it's like, so if I'm doing like an action scene, I might throw on the Mad Max soundtrack, you know, of Fury Road, because Fury Road has a lot of like, you know, like just gets your adrenaline up, you know. So I think like that's what I try to do is like, you know, like find stuff that's like going to work with the mood of like what I'm going for.
Hell yeah! I don't listen to
Did you
music
listen
when
to
I
a lot
read
of metal
comics.
when you were writing Wailing Blade?
Yeah, I actually put together a whole metal soundtrack for Wailing Blade. My friend George O'Connor, he's a writer in his own right. He writes. He just had a Kickstarter for his book Charlie Spot, but he's also a metal musician, and we had him do a metal theme song for Wailing Blade, and like it's on Spotify. You can if you look up Wailing Blade on Spotify, you can listen to the official Wailing Blade theme song, and it's got like this classic metal chorus. You're like, "You're all gonna fall for the Wailing Blade," you know. It's like
nice.
So I was just like, yeah, let me do a metal soundtrack for Wailing Blade, and I
love it.
I started with that song, and then just like added all these like metal songs that like I love, and yeah, I'll like listen to that when I'm trying to get in Wailing Blade mode, because it's a very heavy metal book. It's like, you know, kind of like heavy metal album cover come to life.
Oh yeah, because I mean, 5 pages in, I just went, just grabbed my phone and then put my earbuds in and started listening to "Snakes for the Divine" by High on Fire. I was like, you know, this just deserves metal. Yeah. So, that's awesome. Well, I didn't know about that. I'm gonna have to check that out. I mean, that's awesome.
It was like a fun little thing, you know. It was just like, I'm like, dude, do you want to do a song, like a metal song for Blade? And he's like, fuck yeah. You know?
There's like this whole score. There's like a soundtrack to Elliot Rahall's Creature feature that he did with John Bivens. Apparently, like I want to check that out. And apparently, the Aftershock book We Live has like some kind of like a score that goes along with it using an AR app. I don't know what apps are, but just kidding. I know what an app is. Let's talk about Wailing Blade real quick, because I really like this book. I think it's amazing, and it was I think it might have been the first book of yours that I read, and it just grabbed me. And I thought it had so much energy. And of course, Joe Mulvey, you know, you, by the way, you've been blessed to work with some great artists as well. And we'll talk about them, but Joe does amazing work on Wailing Blade. And we were talking about letterers. Now, Esposito's your letterer on Wailing Blade, right? Like Taylor? The way that he uses the lettering to like be the effect of the sword swinging and the energy coming off of it. And I'm not a big fantasy guy, but it was like sci-fi fantasy, but it was based on like ancient tech that they found. To them, these ancient holy relics, but it's just like a nuclear reactor or something. And that's something you also use in Gutter Magic. That's a fascinating idea. Tell us a little bit about the journey of Gutter Magic, Wailing Blade, how you got started in this industry with that kind of stuff.
All right, cool. So like with Gutter Magic, basically, what happened was, you know, like I loved comics for a long time. I loved writing for a long time, but there was like a period in my life where I didn't really think of writing comics. I was more like, I'm going to write a novel, and Gutter Magic was kind of like the novel that like broke me from like writing prose, because I would keep trying to start it. And I would get like, you know, 5 chapters in, 7 chapters in, and then I would just be like, I don't know what to do. This is insane. I can't do this. So I'm going to start over. And that happened like a few times. And then just sort of like, I guess like a light bulb went off, and I was like, you know what? I love comics. Like I've always wanted to write a comic. I don't necessarily know how, but I want to learn. So I found this place called Comics Experience, it's a website. They offer courses, and they have a workshop where you can basically like learn how how to make comics. Like if you're a writer, there's an intro to writing course. If you're an artist, there's an intro to art, and then they have advanced courses and stuff like that. The guy that runs it, his name's Andy Schmidt. He used to be an editor at Marvel. He used to be an editor at IDW. Really cool guy. But anyway, so I took the intro to writing course because I didn't really know how to write a script, and I didn't really have an idea where I was like, oh, this is like the comic I always wanted to make. So I was like, well, like I keep trying to do gutter magic. Like, I wonder how it would work as a comic. So I just sort of made that my class project, like I was like, let me just take like a little slice of the story I want to tell. Because the class project was like a 5-page script. So I was like, what's like a little short story I could do like in with these characters in this world that I'm trying to create. And I, like it came out really well. And then at the end of the class, I was like, well, I put in the work to write the script. Let me try to get it illustrated, because, like it was sort of like in for a penny, in for a pound, like that old saying, like, I'm going to do it as a comic. Like, let me do it. Like, like I was like, I finished something gutter magic related, like it's like, this is like a complete thing. Like, it's not like something that I got like discouraged and tired of. So I went on, I found an illustrator, and I started getting the pages in, and then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Seeing it come to life and the feeling with that, I was like, all right, let's get it colored, let's get it lettered, you know what I mean? Like, and then kind of having that 5-page story was so inspiring to me that like, I was like, I want to do more. So I started doing some more short stories. And then, Andy from Comics Experience decided he wanted to try to get like some publishing going, because there were a lot of talented people in that had taken these courses, and comics is like a hard business to get published in. So having his contacts, being a former employee at IDW, he talked to some people there and managed to get like a really small imprint going, where like they would publish a few Comics Experience books through IDW. And he gave me a call and was like, I'm doing this thing, and I love gutter magic. I would love you to do like a longer series. Do you have is that something you're interested in? And I'm like, hell yes. So I got that together, and like we put out 4 issues. It did pretty well, but things changed business wise at IDW, where they just sort of went through a period where they were trying to kind of shrink their line a little bit, because they were putting out a lot of stuff, and they basically, a lot of the imprint deals kind of went away. Like at a certain point,
they had all those licenses to deal with.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like at a certain point,
Black Crown was another one, right? Like they did completely stop doing Black Crown, the Shelley Bond stuff, and
this was way before Black Crown, but this was at a time where like there was a company called Darby Pop. There was one called actually Lion Forge, who's a publisher in their own right now. At that time was an imprint. Top Shelf, which I think still survived, because Top Shelf like has its like wheelhouse of like like artistic books that it does. Yeah. So they're still an imprint at IDW, but it's like the Comics Experience was just sort of like it just got caught up in this kind of, I guess, culling of the line. Yeah. So it was just sort of like, well, we're not really going to, we love doing gutter magic, but we're not really doing that stuff anymore. So then it was just sort of a question of like, okay, well, great. It was a great experience. What do we do next? And Wailing Blade was just an idea that I had for a long time, and just started fleshing out, and was looking for a place to do it. And I got friendly with Tyler from Comic Tribe and Joe. We would see each other at cons, and I would be talking about it. And eventually I sent Tyler a pitch, and he loved it. So we just started working on that. And then Joe and I had been friends for a long time, and we were like, it's like we always wanted to work together, but it was like just sort of like timing.
Yeah.
Because he was doing his book Scam for a while, I was doing Gutter Magic, and then it was like, well, we got to find something to work on. And I was just talking about more about Wailing Blade, and he was a little bit unsure at first because, you know, Joe is when he's the first to tell you, and Joe, if you're still on the feed, you know I'm not lying, that he's not, you know, he was never really like a fantasy or sci-fi guy. He was like a superhero guy, you know, like he really liked drawing like you know, street superheroes like Daredevil, Spider-Man, like that kind of like world. Not so much like Wailing Blade required a lot of world building, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like for him to sign on was like a big thing because it meant a lot of work, like, you know, and more work than I even expected from him, which is like a credit to just like what an amazing artist he is. Like one funny thing we talk about is like, you know, like the trees and the grass and stuff. Like he put a lot of thought into that. Like, you know, he was like, I want the trees to be like twisted, like they're like twisted from like the radiation from like past wars and stuff like that. And like,
Yeah, right.
you know, I want the grass to be like, you know, a certain way. And I'm like, Joe, I love all this stuff. I was like, but you know, like if you had just drawn a tree, I never would have been like, dude, you got to work on these trees. They look too normal. You know what I mean? It's
These
like
trees need to be more irradiated, bro.
yeah, like it never would have entered into my head, but it's just like that's just like one of the things that's amazing about comics and like collaborating with people is they bring ideas to the table that you would never in a million years think of on your own.
Yeah.
So so basically kind of Wailing Blade just came about by, you know, me getting to know Joe and kind of like bringing him into the ideas I was having, and like he brought ideas to the table and like putting them all together. And like Wailing Blade's a really special book to me. You know, it's like you know, I tell people I've written a lot of books, but there's only one that like I gotten like etched onto my skin. Let me see if I can turn the camera. Like, you know,
Oh, nice.
That's the symbol from Wailing Blade, because that was like for one of the Kickstarter rewards with the series. We were like, if we hit a certain level, we're gonna give out temporary tattoos to people. And I was like, you know what? If we hit it, I'm gonna get a real tattoo.
Dude, that's awesome. Carl Kiesel does that same stuff with his Section Zero Kickstarters. When I met him, he showed me his tattoos. He's like, I've never had a tattoo in my life, but I've got these. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. Like, that's a way to get the funds up. Be like, hey, I'm gonna get a tattoo. Maybe we should try that here at PCP, Brian. Me and you get PCP. Yeah, and we'll get like what did like all the ladies get in the early 2000s? Tramp stamps.
Tramp stamps?
What they call them? Yeah.
Tramp stamps. There you go.
Yeah, so I'll get PCP tramp stamps. Come on, guys. If we hit 1 million subscribers, no, just kidding. Go. Nobody pull that video up and go on. No, Wailing Blade's a great book because it's got that fantasy world building. I mean, there's maps, there's all kinds of back history, there's all kinds of shit, but it's a sci-fi book at the same time, and that's something that I just love about it. Like with Gutter Magic, I know plenty of people that are into things like steampunky type things, and I've never really gotten that. So when I first saw Gutter Magic, I remember being like, I don't know, it looks kind of steampunk, but like it's about magic. It's tied into like other things, and it's really cool. I wouldn't say Gutter Magic is as sci-fi as Wailing Blade, but
it's kind of like a different thing. It's almost like it's a little more in kind of like the wheelhouse of like the Dresden Files books or like Harry Potter or something like that. But I think the thing with Gutter Magic that I was trying to do differently was like, you know, with like a lot of these, there's a lot of books that sort of talk about like, well, what if there was magic like in our world? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And nine times out of 10, it's like, it must be kept secret, you know, like the wizards have to be very careful about the magic that they're doing because, you know, and so it's like all secret societies and stuff, and it's like that's great. Like, there's a lot of those stories that I really do enjoy, and you can tell a lot of excellent ones. But I was just like, well, what if there was magic in like our world where the wizards just didn't give a crap, and they were like, yeah, we're here, you're living next door to an ogre, deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was just sort of like coming on that with that basic idea, like helped me fill in the backstory of like, okay, well, how are we going to have that all make sense? You know what I mean? So that's kind of like, but yeah, like the basic idea was just, it's like, wizards just out in the open, like doing magic and, mixing it in with like real world stuff. And I like steampunk as kind of like an aesthetic. So I was like, yeah, let's make it look steampunky. And, but it's like,
I was hoping that what came across as a compliment, being like, I'm not.
No, it's fine.
I'm
it's
into
totally
gutter magic.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
like, but
I
I'm
mean,
into
like,
gutter magic.
no, but again, like, but then it was like, okay, so I want steampunk. So why would it be steampunk? Like, if it's our world, why would it be steampunk? And that was just a question I had to ask myself and come up with, an answer like in the book. So.
That's awesome. So you did the initial run, and it was released by IDW, right? And then Source Point picked it up, and they re-released it, and then they released the second volume of it. Is there any plans for a third? I'm sure if they're down, you're down, right?
Yeah, if they're down, like I would be down to do more. I think like, like it kind of came out in the middle of the pandemic, so it released around the time when like I think like over half of the comic stores in the country were closed.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. I think we stopped it. I pushed the hell out of it as much as I could because I thought it was really cool.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. But I think this year at some point we're gonna be releasing it in trade. So you never know. Like I have like Gutter Magic and Wailing Blade are like they're both, I guess, like worlds or whatever that like if you chained me to a desk and said, you can only tell stories in this world from now until the day you die, like I have stories I could tell, both with the characters and like with other characters and coming at it from like different, like I put a lot of thought into like, building those worlds. So like I could tell Gutter Magic stories for days. I could tell Wailing Blade stories for days. I hope I get the chance. It's just sort of like a lot of this stuff is like timing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This was going to happen, Rich. This was going to happen. You remember what it was like in the 90s when you were getting into Grant Morrison, right? And you're reading things like JLA, at 15 years old, at least I was. And then that leads you into things like the Invisibles and his new X-Men and other deeper things and the Filth eventually. And then you go, man, I want to read everything this cat's ever done. And then you go, man, I can't find a copy of Zenith to save my life right now, right? But then Zenith got reprinted, and now I've read it, and we did a whole like show of Comics Revisited about it, right? I think that's going to happen one day for you because, like, seriously, your work just keeps getting better, bruh. It just keeps getting better. Man. Your world building's there. Your character work is there. Your pacing is there. You work with some of the best artists out there. You've been doing, in my opinion, some like I like IDW a lot, but for the most part, they've kind of been the licensed comic book company for the last long bit. I think they're losing that idea to Boom probably. And I think they're really starting to focus more on these indie works and and I don't know how indie is Rotobones and Sea of Sorrows. Is that completely yours and Alex's? And like, is that how that works? Do they have like options? Like, how does that work? What can you talk about with that?
Well, without getting into too much detail, like, they're completely mine and Alex's in comic form. If they were to go to some other form, like, I don't know, TV or movie or something, and I'm not saying that's happening, so please don't take anything from that.
Right now, speculate like a motherfucker, man. Buy Rotobone, 1, 2, 3.
It's something that we would be like kind of sharing with them. So
you'd be involved in it probably a little bit, right?
Yeah, we'd be involved. It's not like they could, go take it and like do whatever they, want with it. It's like we kind of think of it. It's like if that ever happens, we would be partners with them in that.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Somebody should definitely pick it up, and because like seriously, this shit would
Robbie
work.
said so, Hollywood. Robbie said so.
Bro, like I'm serious. Like we've been calling shit here in the PCP Army. It's the weirdest stuff. I was like saying, hey, they should do a Fantastic Four life story, and then like a few days later, they're like, Mark Russell's doing Fantastic Four life story, and I'm like, I know that obviously that was set up a while ago, but I'm like, man, we called it, like so things that we can manifest stuff here in the PCP Army. We got a little bit of power. We've all read the Invisibles. We know what's up. But
manifest,
Road of Bones, Sea of Sorrows with any of those, Wailing.
I think a Wailing Blade animated movie would be
I would love that.
Like
with like a nice soundtrack.
Yeah, anytime I hear about like a new like kind of like adult animation thing, I'm always like, yes. It's like let's get it more popular because I think Wailing Blade would make an insane animated series, amazing one.
Oh, dude, it would work so well. I really do. It's so balls to the wall, and that's what I like about your writing. You honestly remind me, and I'm not trying to give you a big head or nothing, but you remind me of a Garth Ennis, right? A little bit. Like there's like, but I don't think Garth Ennis he doesn't do as much world building as I think you have done. But I think, like for instance, I would love to see you on a Punisher book. I've been saying that for a couple years now.
Wow.
I love to see Rich Douek on a Punisher book. So now I want to know, and I know a lot of people in the PCP Army want to know, if you got a chance to do a mainstream book, DC or Marvel, what would it be and why?
Well, I will say I have what I think is a really good Punisher idea that I think would be like kind of.
We're going to manifest this shit.
Pretty much unlike. I think it would really take people by surprise, and because it's unlike any Punisher story I've ever read, but I think it would be really good. I love. I don't know. I couldn't exactly tell you why, but I have a major thing for Sabretooth over Wolverine. Like I know most people are like Wolverine fans, but I just love Victor Creed. I have a really amazing Victor Creed story I would love to do. Sabretooth. Who else? Ghost Rider. I would love to do a Ghost Rider thing.
Which Ghost Rider? If you had the choice, which Ghost Rider would you use?
I think it's one of those things that would eventually involve all of them. But if I love Danny Ketch and I love Robbie Reyes. I love Johnny Blaze as well. But like I think if I had to pick one, I think I would start with Danny and just sort of like worm my way into the rest of them there.
You do Ghost Rider. I'll do my 5-year Blade plan. We'll culminate in this big Midnight Suns giant Marvel epic crossover that they'll eventually use in 14. It's already planned, y'all. Let's do this.
So that's the Marvel side. On the DC side, I'm a big fan of Red Hood. I would love to do a Red Hood series. And I love obviously Batman, Superman, any of those dudes. I think would be dream gigs. But yeah, it's just funny that you said the Punisher because I've had a Punisher idea I've been dying to share, and I don't want to talk about it only because I don't want to
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Not on air at least. And Eric says, unlike anything we've ever seen from the Punisher is a bold statement because dude's been an angel and a Frankenstein monster. I'm there for it.
Yeah. Well, I could be wrong. I haven't read every single Punisher thing in the world, but I would have to say, I think it's a pretty unique idea. So
I think that
if any of you guys know, CB or anyone at Marvel, you want to give them a call, give them a call.
Go ahead. out hashtag Douek on Punisher. But let me tell you guys, don't be spammy about it. Don't be obnoxious.
Yeah.
But like, we got to let them know, like, this is a real thing. You got to put something into reality. You got to verbalize it. It becomes real, right?
It's a secret, right? Secret.
Yeah.
You got to visualize it.
The Hebrew tradition is that God spoke the world into existence. So speaking, just like Yul Brynner, the great Yul Brynner said, so let it be written, so let it be done. I want to see you on Punisher so bad, homie. I really freaking do. And yeah, he's gone through a lot of stuff. He's been, I mean, they changed him into a black man for a little bit, right? Like I covered that on Marvel in the 90s. He was an angel. I covered that on Marvel in the 90s. I actually like that stuff because I'm a big Bernie Wrightson fan. He could just draw
to space.
He could have just. He's been to space. He's been a Frankenstein monster. That was some wild shit. You know, he's gone through so much stuff, but for the most part, Punisher stories are kind of the same. And I think Rich is saying he's got an idea that breaks it from that mold in a way that like Greg Rucka did. I think Greg Rucka has one of the most underappreciated runs on the Punisher ever. So that's super, super freaking awesome. Now I all got distracted. What movies do you like? Fable wants to know in particular. Fable keeps commenting this, and I was going to get to this. We always get to movie talk.
Sure.
What, do you like horror movies at all?
Yeah, I do.
Fable, what movies you like?
I tend to like a lot more of like, I guess, kind of like the classic horror movies. It's not that I don't like new stuff. It's just like when I'm like, if you're talking about like the horror movies that kind of influenced like Sea of Sorrows and Road of Bones, we're talking more about like The Thing and Alien and Jaws and, you know, kind of like, I guess like classics like that more than like, you know, a little bit more modern stuff. But yeah, no, I like horror movies. I like a good scare. You know, John Carpenter, I think, is one of my favorite directors, like just in general. If we're talking branching out from horror movies, like I like sci-fi stuff. I like Tarantino a lot. You know, I think he's just a master of like dialogue and just sort of like, I think some of my like favorite scenes that like I study, like you know, like there are scenes in like Inglourious Bastards and like Django Unchained that like you can just like sort of like learn a lot from in terms of like, you know, tension and acting and the
dairy farm scene and the bar scene.
Oh yeah,
Glorious Bastards. Like those are two of the best scenes I think Tarantino's ever written. They're amazing.
Yeah, and you know, so I'm big into him. I like I like a lot of stuff. I like animated movies like Akira is one of my faves.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie, great book.
And I also love like kind of like I guess like indie movies that are kind of like put together with like duct tape and paper clips, so to speak. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Repo Man with Emilio Estevez.
I was about to be like the Estevez one or the musical.
No, not the musical, like the Estevez one, because it's just like it's like, you know, you can kind of like, you could see the seams, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like a super polished or super well put together, but there's just like some like kind of something magical about it of just like,
there's a charm to it, right? You know?
Yeah.
Like, I love stupid movies that are barely put together that actually have something to say. Like I love things like Buckaroo Banzai. I think that's kind of like and there's a, what's the name of this movie? Is it Slipstream? It's got Bill Paxton and it's got Mark Hamill. Is it called Slipstream?
Yeah.
That movie, I love that movie. It's so terrible, but it's also so good at the same time.
It's a really cool idea. It's like in this like weird future where like society's devastated, but there's like wind blowing through the canyons, and like they're all like kind of like having. It's been a long time. Like I think I rented it like a Blockbuster in like the 90s or something, but it's like
You're taking us back. Yeah, at the same
time, like they have to like glide along like these like wind canyons and stuff like that.
I've been telling people, I was like, you think pirating is crazy now? Like the first time I watched Slipstream and Buckaroo Banzai were on VHS bootlegs that somebody gave me. They like rented them from a Blockbuster or a movie gallery or something, and then had 2 VCRs hooked up because that was like totally 90s pirates, you know. They're like, "Arr, matey," and they like put together like all these VCRs, and they like would copy these videos, and like, oh my goodness, it was absolutely nuts.
I mean, like if you look at like the evolution of like Mad Max, you know, like you look at Fury Road. Fury Road like took them like 10 years to make, and it's like it's an amazing movie in so many ways in terms of like, you know, the themes and the action and like the set design down to like, you know, the smallest details. And then it's like you look at that and then you look at like the first Mad Max and you're like, you know, the first Mad Max is like, you know, it's like you know, Mel Gibson was not like, you know, Mel Gibson, fine actor regardless of all his, you know, personal troubles or whatever. But it's like, you know, everybody else in the movie, it's like, you know, it's not like it was like some like top tier movie of like Hollywood talent and with like a huge budget or anything, but it's like it was just like people like doing something, you know what I mean? They were like doing the movie that he wanted to make, you know, and there's just like, and that had enough kind of force to carry it for decades to like, you know, it's like, it's part of our culture. It's like, you know, if I say to you like, oh, Mad Max World, it's like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you probably would know that even if Fury Road hadn't come out, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. I really respect like people who put together stuff outside of like, I guess like the, you know, Hollywood system or like whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, that's me with movies.
Have you seen The Lighthouse by any chance?
Which one?
The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse. Yeah, I did actually. I did not see it before I started Sea of Sorrows, but I did see it, I think, after I finished scripting it. I think I was trying to kind of stay away because I didn't want it to really like influence me at all, because I knew, you know, it was like had to do with the ocean and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a crazy freaking movie. Really good.
Yeah.
But really crazy.
Yeah, they're different. I mean, they're different settings and everything. But I had COVID over the holiday break. So yeah, whole family got it. We're all good now, though. Everybody's good. But it did give me a little time to watch. I'd been wanting to watch it for months, and but I had my stack of comics next to me, and I had just read Sea of Sorrows, #1, and then I was like, "Oh, I have time to watch The Lighthouse now." And then I watched it and I went, "Huh." You know, okay. I was like, you know, seeing some similarities there.
Yeah, people going mad to see. It's like, you know, yeah, there's, I think there's definitely like kind of like a lot, you know, a lot of the same DNA in there. Like I would say like the guys that like, you know, or the people that wrote it and directed it and stuff were probably drawing on a lot of, you know, similar things that I was drawing on. You know, I think that's pretty common. That's, you know, how you get your kind of Armageddon and Deep Impact and like that whole situation. It's, you know, we're all kind of like drawing from the same well. So yeah, but I think they are very like different stories. It's just that there are like, you know, tackle like similar themes.
Yeah. But I thought it was an amazing coincidence, but it was, you know, but yeah, I love that movie and that, you know, and yeah, I'm really digging that comic. I can't wait to see that.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, if Willem Dafoe's in a movie, I'm on it. I love that dude.
I haven't watched Lighthouse yet, so I had to step away. But I hope you guys are done with that.
Yeah,
I have it over there. I haven't watched it yet, though. I've been meaning to.
I think
It's
that's
good.
the first movie I've seen with Robert Pattinson in it. So,
yeah, he's
and-
actually like a really, really good actor. It's like I think he's kind of over it now, but there was like a period of time where like he just got dismissed because of the Twilight thing, and people were like, "Oh, he's just a pretty boy" and stuff. But like, if you check out like The Lighthouse and a couple of his other grittier movies, he's actually like a really good actor. I'm pretty excited to see him as Batman.
So I was about to ask you that,
Oh, yeah.
like, if you were excited
Yeah,
to see him as Batman, because I am, because that little snippet of a trailer they showed us, like,
yeah, it was really good.
okay,
I'm into it. I'm into it.
Like 100% down for that, man. That's super freaking cool. Heck yeah. Do you like sports at all, Rich? Just curious.
Yeah, I'm not.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I'm not a sports guy. Like I don't follow teams really, but I do enjoy watching, and like I'm just not emotionally vested in it. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
sometimes probably a good thing to do. You know, not be emotionally invested in sports. But I actually like being emotionally invested in sports, because then like for instance, the Super Bowl, I didn't care about any of those teams, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
I'll
I
be
made
emotionally
a bet.
invested like while I'm watching it, like in the
gotcha.
game. Like I'll be like, yeah, you know. But I'm not like, you know, I don't get depressed if my team, my home
I'll be
team
honest,
loses.
bro. I'll be honest, man.
Like, you know,
I have gotten depressed because my team got kicked out of the postseason, mostly involving the Yankees. We're down here in Alabama, right? Where it's all about Alabama football, you know, and I'm an Auburn fan, and Brian's a Georgia Tech fan. But down here, it's all about that. And there are so many people that live their lives totally emotionally based on college football. And it's crazy to me. But, you know, I love the idea that you can kind of go on this journey, right, with your favorite team, and you can kind of learn how to handle loss. I don't know. This is the way I like justify it. I tell people, like, no, I learned how to handle loss by being angry about sports and then getting over it very quickly. You know, but it's crazy.
I grew up in Queens, literally one subway stop away from Shea Stadium, where the Mets used to play before Citi Field.
Yeah.
So 1986 aside, I am very,
goodness.
very used to my home team disappointing you and letting you down and stuff like that.
So you're Mets. Okay, so you're Mets fan. I get it. You know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we can still come here of one mind together. I've never been to New York. Now, you still live up in New York, right?
I live close. I'm in New Jersey, but I'm like pretty much like right across the river. So
don't New Yorkers just consider New Jersey New York?
It's weird. It's kind of like a Mason-Dixon line thing. Like it did take a little bit of like you know, soul searching to like be like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go live in New Jersey.
Oh my goodness!
Like, bring shame to my fellow New York residents, but we've been here for a few years now and we dig it. So
it's fine, right? You can.
It's good. Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, back when we were still, you know, in offices and stuff, I was in the city every day. It's except for the weekends, but you know, just like that close. And
do you still work in advertising?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
so you tell stories there too, right?
Yeah, tell stories there. They just happen to be about, you know, air fresheners and
oh my goodness,
stuff like that.
Like, I got this air freshener idea. What if they killed this air freshener and then just buried it in the road, and it was the road of bones of air fresheners?
It's funny because I'm like, and anytime anybody in my ad agency has an idea where they think like, oh, maybe we could do something with like a comic book or something. It's like they know exactly who to call. It's like,
nice.
Like, hey, you know.
And then they read your comic work and they're like, I don't know if this is the right guy.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. So it's your day life is like Mad Men, right? It's all cocktails and secretaries, and then you go home and write comics. Is that how it goes?
No, the industry hasn't been like that in a long, long time. We missed the glory days. I mean, you know, it's still fun. It's still fun, but it's a lot more. It's a lot less like glamorous. Like I wear this to work. I don't need to wear a Don Draper suit or anything like that.
Did you wear the Devil Tarot card to work?
Yeah, all the time.
By the way,
people like it.
I love the shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, here.
I should have worn my High Priestess one tonight, man. I have a tarot shirt too. Brian, we should all get tarot card shirts. We should tell people. We got to like, you go to $6 shirts, don't you?
I do.
So do I. That's where this came from, baby.
Yeah, they have a lot of good shirts.
Yeah, they do. They do.
I would pay more than $6 for some of them. There's some nice designs there.
No kidding.
But yeah, no, like the advertising thing. It's like on the one hand, like it can be a grind sometimes because it's a job like any other job. But on the other hand, it's amazing because it's like it lets me write and think creatively like every single day. Like, it lets me kind of get involved in things like producing a video or like, what goes into like making something as simple as like a tweet or a Facebook post or something like that,
Yeah.
So it's like, like what's the editing process when you're editing a video? So it's just like learning all these like little like bits of knowledge that I think like I can sort of like take from that and apply them to like the comics part of my career that I think is like actually really good.
Nice. Super cool. Any tips or suggestions you would have for an aspiring comic book creator?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably write a book. Maybe I will someday. I don't know.
You should. I'd buy it. I'd review it. I'd be like, this is a great book about how to make it in the industry by Rich Douek. Let's do it.
It's like that. Like, I think I would have found that really valuable starting out would be just kind of like don't get fixated on like what your kind of like your dream project is. You know what I mean? It's great to have dreams. I still have dreams, and don't let go of it, but don't get to the point where you're like, well, I have this idea for a book, and if Image doesn't want to publish it, then I'm just, going to put it in a drawer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also don't get in the mindset where like, just like, I can't believe Marvel is screwing up Spider-Man so badly. I'm gonna go next time the con's in town. I'm gonna go talk to those Marvel guys. I'm gonna tell them my idea for Spider-Man, and I'm gonna be the next Spider-Man writer. It just doesn't happen like that. You know what I mean?
No,
it's
not
like,
at all.
So it's like those are just sort of like you just sort of have to like take those dreams, hold on to them, but put them in a drawer and do what you got to do to like kind of make progress towards that. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't let, lack of a publisher stop you. Don't let a rejection stop you. Just like find a way to do it, because if you do it, you're already going to be ahead of the game, ahead of like 95% of the people that want to be comic creators. There's no shortage of people that want to be in the comics business. That's part of what makes it so hard to get in, is that every single job has like 50 people trying to get it. You know what I mean? So it's like, but there's like just so many people who talk about like, yeah, I want to make a comic. I want to be a writer, and it's like, and then they don't actually like produce stuff. You know what I mean? And then so it's like if you can actually get a comic made, it's like you've leveled up, even if it's a terrible comic. And I'm not saying any of you lovely folks out there in the chat would write a terrible comic, but I'm just saying, even if it was a terrible comic,
some of y'all would.
It's still better than the kind of vaporware comic that somebody has in their head that doesn't actually exist.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
And we've all had that, right, Rich? We've all had that bit inside of us that is like, oh, if I could just let Marvel know what they're doing wrong.
I still have a ton of them. Not that doing wrong, but it's just like, I got ideas that may happen, may never happen. I don't know. But it's like, they have a better chance of happening now that like I've, you know, gone
Built it
out
up.
and done some stuff and built it up. It's like you got it. It's like it's like you're building like a building, so you got to take it like brick by brick. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, breaks may happen. You may get like a lucky break. But you can't count on it. So you really got to like, you know, do the stuff you want to do. Like, you know, you're going to hear no's, you know, like you're going to hear no's from a lot of people. Like Road of Bones, it's not that IDW was I'm like super happy to have it with IDW, and I love those guys. And hindsight, I wouldn't put it anywhere else, but I pitched it to a lot of places. You know what I mean? You know, it wasn't like what I'm trying to say is like it wasn't like IDW was like my fifth choice or something like that. It was just like when I was sending it out, I sent it out at the same time to like a lot of places, like saying like I have this idea for a book.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said no to it. You know what I mean? And a lot of people said no to it before IDW said yes. And if at any point I had let one of those no's be like, okay, well, I guess I'll throw this one away and try to work on something else. It's like, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, we wouldn't care about you, Rich.
So I guess what I'm just saying is it's like you got like if you have like an idea you're passionate about doing, it's like, you know, find a way to do it, even if it isn't the perfect way that you're envisioning doing it. You know what I mean? If you have an idea for a series, you pitch it to Image and they say no, you pitch it to IDW, they say no, you pitch it to Boom, they say no, you pitch it to everyone you can think of and they all say no, go on Kickstarter and do it yourself. You know what I mean? Let that kind of like feeling of, you know, it's like, you know, you just show them that, you know, you're not going to be stopped by like, you know, a little adversity, because there's a lot of adversity out there.
Yeah.
So, you know,
dude, that's great advice just for real life.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah,
you are always going to come up against obstacles no matter what you want to do. You're always and when we ask people this question a lot, like what you basically got to is a lot of people say like you get used to saying no. Like people saying no to you, right? Like you got to get used to rejection, and that's life. You know, that's dating. You know, like remember when you were an awkward teenager and you were trying to like date and you kept having no's and no's and no's because you didn't know how to like even approach the situation. That's a big part of it. Like sometimes you don't know how to pitch a thing. And let me tell you, like Rich said, the best way to pitch something isn't to corner a Marvel editor at a McDonald's and tell them what they're doing wrong with the Avengers and how you can fix it. That's not going to win any favors. You do the work, you do it on your own, and you let them know that you're going to do it. You know, that you're going to do it. And I've been hesitating the entire show to say that, but you just got to let them know that you're like, you know, like when we started this channel, I just had this crappy phone. I'm always generations behind on phones, right? And I was like, I have no camera equipment, nothing. I'm going to start with my phone. And everybody around me was like, that's insane. You're not. I'm like, I don't care. I have to start. You got to start somewhere. Your first work is never your best. Your first draft is always your worst. And you just got to keep going at it. And that's great advice to break into any industry or just for life, just for dealing with the day-to-day life. Rich, I think you got a sound head on your shoulders.
I like to think so. You know, a lot of crazy stuff going on inside of it, but you know, it's you know, like I think about this stuff like a lot. So yeah, I mean, like it just reminded me, like there was like one time I was at New York Comic Con, and like basically it's such a big con that they kind of herd people, I guess, from like, you know, 3 or 4 blocks. Like you can't get like 5 blocks away from New York Comic Con without being like kind of shuffled into like a line. You know what I mean? It's like there's just that many people going there that they have people kind of directing you like from like 5 blocks away, and then eventually you get to the door, you get in. And but I just remember one year I was walking with some dude, total stranger, but we just happened to start talking because, like, you know, we're walking like 5 blocks together. We're both obviously going to the Comic-Con, and I had a pro pass because at the time, like that was like, I think like right after I had published Gutter Magic, so I was able to get a pro pass. So he saw the pro pass and he asked me like, well, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a writer." And he's like, "Oh, I want to write too." And he's like, "I hate Flashpoint. I think they completely screwed up the entire DC universe, and and like Batman's father would never do that." Like he was just super super passionate about it, and he's like, I've rewritten Flashpoint the way it should be, and I'm gonna go to DC, and I'm gonna this was like after Flashpoint had been done for like
it's done.
months. And he was like, and I'm going to show it to them. Do you think that they would publish it? And I was just like, I'm like, you're asking me like if you think that they're going to publish like something that completely voids like, a big event that they did, that they're
Flashpoint, the Snyder cut,
like a redo. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, like, just to be honest with you, like it's going to be a hard sell. I mean, like I wish you all the luck in the world, but like, it's just, but like, and he like, I could tell like he just kind of like wasn't really getting it. So it's like, we kind of like left it at that and went our separate ways. But it's just like, so many people kind of have that attitude where like, and it's not like, it's understandable because these characters mean a lot to people. You know what I mean? They mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to everybody. And it's like, you just sort of like have it in your head, like, oh God, like you would just give me the chance. Like I could, do something amazing.
Yeah.
It's just like, you just gotta, I think like the more, if you're actually planning on doing it, the more that you're into it, the more you realize that story of like, you pitching an idea and then I say, you know what, kid, you got the stuff. Like, and like walking off the street and walking out with like, the new writer of Spider-Man. It's like, it's just a story and it doesn't happen.
Yeah. It didn't even happen to Stan Lee, y'all. He was just that dude's nephew. Okay. And he put in the work and he got to where he was based on his work. And then Roy Thomas, Jeff Johns, they send in their fanfic ideas on letters pages and everybody likes to tout that. But like they put in work before they got those gigs. Roy Thomas did not become editor-in-chief of Marvel overnight. You know what I'm saying? Like, put in the work, do your own thing.
Yeah.
The indie world right now, the audience for that is thirsty right now for original stories, because this is one of the things that I love, Rich, about indie comics and your work in particular, is that you watch movies, you watch TV, it's all adaptations of other things. They're all based on this comic book, based on this movie, based on this series, based on this old school idea, remake of this movie. Where do you get the most original content? Independent comic books, y'all. I'm telling you. And everybody saves their best ideas. I keep telling y'all this. Nobody believes me. Rich, would you not save your best ideas for yourself and not for one of the big twos, right? Because that's your thing.
Well, because you're not gonna, like, at the end of the day, it's like, if you're working on like a big two or any licensed comic, it's like, you can put your mark on it, but at the end of the day, it's still theirs. Like I have very, very little experience with this, but like, I wrote a turtle story, but it's not like I can take that turtle story and then like write part 2 of it on my own. You know what I mean? It's like, it's, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it is what it is. So it's like, it's not that I would, not give any job like that my best, when I got the Turtles job, I was like, well, I'm going to tell the best turtle story that I can, and if they got, Superman or Wolverine or whatever, I would like put my all into telling the best. But it's like, if you're talking about like, an idea I have that I'm like super passionate about, it's like, yeah, it's going to be like my own work, because that's, you know, that's mine.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's why when Rich pitched that IDW book, he said he wanted the Turtles to go and salvage for Nazi gold, or not for Nazi gold, but for German gold. And then they come across a bunch of sirens and they get murdered and turn on each other and murder each other. Yeah.
Yeah, they just said no. So, yeah, like,
well, speaking of that, do you have pitches or anything you're working on that could talk about, or folks you're working with on stuff coming up next? Or
yeah, I mean, I do have a couple of things in the pipeline that I can't talk about, but they're very good things that I hope will be super. I know I'm super excited about them. I hope everybody else will be too. I can say that like I'm working on new stuff with Alex, new stuff with Joe, for various things. Nothing's concrete yet, but you know, it's like we're still like we're working on it. One thing that's really cool that I know I can talk about is Alex and I paired up to do a short story in the next issue of Razor Blades horror magazine.
oh,
Nice.
awesome.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. We actually just got the colors done on that by my friend Chris Sotomayor. They look amazing. It's a really short story, but it's one of the most twisted things I've ever written and that Alex has ever drawn. So so hopefully, you know, people will dig that. I think that's going to be out in April. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's quarterly, and one of them just came out, so it'll be, as far as I know, it'll be in the next one. So
Nice.
Yeah. So that's going to be really cool. And yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of this is just like, you know, I'm like talking to people and trying to find like, you know, the right projects. I'm working on some things where I am, you know, just with an artist and we don't have a home for it. I'm working on a couple of things that, you know, that are just like very early stages, but like with the publishers, like, yeah, let's do something. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I hate being vague. I don't want to be, you know, like a tease, but it's like, I guess the way to say it is like, I am still working on a lot of stuff and hope to have, you know, some of it out this year, maybe some of it out, you know, some of it might take a little longer to, you know, work through the system, but still at it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's what I was definitely hoping for, because like, yeah, you know, a lot of that stuff I know is secret and, you know, different phases and things like that, but it's just exciting to know that, you know, working on, you know, got a lot of things coming out. So it's good.
Brian's just trying to pry out information from you. That's why we call him Brian, not Brian. We call him Brian. He's always trying to get these guys like, tell me everything you can about what you got coming up that you can't tell anybody else. But it's okay.
Well, it's like what I said before, like, you know, if some of these ideas, if everybody winds up saying no to them, you'll see them on Kickstarter. Because
there you go.
Like, it's like there are just books I want to make and stories I want to tell, and I'm going to find a way to do it.
We're excited.
You guys know Brian Hill,
yes.
Brian Edward Hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Big fan of his work.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine, and he posted something on Twitter the other day that I really loved. It was a Latin saying, and I'm not going to attempt to say the Latin because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But what it translated to was, and he was basically talking about it like this was like his motto when it comes to like to work, is that like I will find a way or I will make a way, and I think that's the way to be.
I just wrote Brian's name down because I was like, you know what? I never thought about it, but I was like, I gotta try to get Brian on the show. I love Brian so much because he's not just such a great writer; he is a philosopher. I follow him on socials. He is a philosopher, bro, and I love this dude's way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just like if you ever get the chance to meet him in person or talk to him, he's just really, really cool dude. So
he just seems like the coolest
highly
dude.
recommend
I'll
it.
be honest, his whole aesthetic, his whole
Yeah.
everything is just like so appealing to me. I'm like, bro, I want to be you. Like I'm like Beavis and Butthead when they met that Todd dude, and there's just hearts coming out of my eyes. I'm just like, same with you, Rich. No offense, same with you. But Brian's like Brian's one of the only people I've ever seen on social media, aside from me, to say that he loves the Michael Mann film adaptation of Miami Vice. Like to me, that like speaks volumes. Like I thought I was the only one, Brian and Rich. I thought I was the only one that liked that movie so much. Rich, I got a final question for you, man.
All right.
All right. I don't think the government tells us everything that we're supposed to know. I don't think that the media tells us everything we're supposed to know at certain times about certain things. I want to know, have you ever seen strange lights in the sky? Have you ever had an alien encounter, an encounter with a ghost, something supernatural, paranormal, something otherworldly? I'm just curious. Anything you'd like to share?
I don't, I've never had anything that I could definitively say was like paranormal or anything like that. I've had a few times where I've been majorly like creeped out, but then it's like the most striking one was one time, but I was like asleep. I was like half asleep in bed, so I don't know if I was like dreaming or not. It was like that kind of like weird kind of like
the in between
twilight, that in between thing where I was like having a conversation with somebody that I thought was in the room, but then it's like when your head kind of clears, you're like maybe it was just a dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think aliens are probably a little more within the realm of possibility than ghosts, but you never know. I'm not like one to pass judgment one way or the other. So
yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. I've only seen strange lights in the sky one time, and it was last year. After a year, like in a lifetime of searching for any kind of experience, whether spiritual or paranormal or whatever, right? And I think if you look for this stuff, you're more likely to find it at some point, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think, okay, so alien life, okay, most of us can easily say alien life exists, right? That's obvious. It's almost a near infinite universe, they say. Who cares, right? Whatever they say, I believe. I'm down with it. Do you think they visit us?
I don't know. It's like the thing is the thing that I can never kind of square away with, like, it's like I don't understand the need for like all the secrecy that supposedly springs up around it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Kind of like the classic explanation is like, oh, the world isn't ready for like it would. It's like, no, I think we're pretty ready. We've been like telling stories about like otherworldly creatures for pretty much as long as there have been people, and we've been telling stories about aliens from other planets that with no like kind of spiritual thing part of it involved for like the better part of like 100 years. So it's like I think we as a society could handle it. You know what I mean? It's just like, so why are we keeping this all secret? I think the most likely thing is it's like, they call it UFOs, unidentified, because they don't know what it is. You know what I mean? It's like I could see it from the aliens' point of view, like, maybe they're like, if they're visiting us or whatever, it's like the sort of thing, maybe it's like a Star Trek thing where like they don't want to interfere, or they don't, or they're kind of like looking at us like zoo animals or a TV show or something.
Yeah, that's probably more likely, right? They're like, these guys, look at this show.
Right. But it's like, but yeah, I think like, yeah, it just, the whole like kind of like cover up thing and stuff like that, that's like where it kind of starts to fall down for me.
I wouldn't put it past any government, especially ours, to like, if they had access to technology that was way advanced, to like kind of hide it. Like, not that we're not ready for it, but we are ready for it. I think we're ready for this. We're ready to know that there's a bigger place in the universe for us than just here on Earth, because it seems like just focusing on Earth is causing more division, right? Like it's just how we've been handling this. So maybe if we were, together with the rest of the universe, maybe I would love to believe in that Star Trek dream, but I don't think that we're heading there at our current point. But I wouldn't put it past our government at all to have some kind of technology that landed here, or that they're trying to reverse, engineer, that they wouldn't even tell us about, right? Because it's all about the war machine, and whatever. I'm not trying to get too deep into that. I think most alien phenomena is extra dimensional in nature, and more likely the same type phenomena as visions of the Virgin Mary, or angels and demons, or ghosts, or ancient ancestors, things like that. I think it's more something like that. I don't think that anybody out there galaxies away would want to come see us. And if they did come see us, I don't think they would have much interest in us, aside from the way that we watch some National Geographic documentaries. But I don't know. That's just me. But I appreciate you talking about that with us, because I do that with everybody. Every comic book creator that's ever been on here, I have to ask them this question, because it's just a bit here we do. But I'm really into this stuff. Like I really think aliens are real. I think there's some more stuff going on that I think we all lead distracted lives. You know what I'm saying? And a closer connection to nature could benefit a lot of us, I think. But I'm getting too hippie right
definitely.
Because I don't know. Anyway, the Teen Dog shades are off. Okay, go ahead. What were you saying?
No. I was just going to say, it's like, I think like, we kind of like, just because of the age that we're living in, you sort of come up with, as you grow up, you come up with the idea that, like, science can explain everything, and there's no, there's nothing beyond, like, the physical world, or like what we can see. But that's kind of a misconception. I think it's more like, it's more that you can't say something is scientifically true unless you can prove it. That doesn't mean that there's not stuff out there that we can't necessarily prove scientifically. It doesn't mean it's not necessarily real or outside the realm of possibility. It's just that the most you can say from a scientific perspective is we don't know. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing. It's like, we don't know. Like, we can't explain it.
The problem is, when you really get into science, you start getting into like physics and like quantum physics, then it gets even crazier. And you're like, most like quantum physics, y'all, the whole basic idea is this. Yeah, it's all probabilistic. Like, who knows? Like, particles are waves, and they're particles. Who knows what's going on? We don't know.
No, we don't know. I mean, like, like you hear about, like, I was just reading something the other day about dark matter. And, people talk about dark matter like, 75% of the universe is made up of dark matter. Like, that's a fact, but it's like, no one's ever observed dark matter. What it really is it's a theory that makes the math work for a lot of quantum physics.
And that's the cool thing about physics. That's where string theory comes from. And dark matter, dark energy, we see the effects. So there's something affecting things. But the idea of dark matter and dark energy, you're right. It's hard to it's a misconception to say, oh, this is dark energy and dark matter, because we call it that because we don't know what it is.
Yeah, like, nobody's ever observed it or measured it, so it's like, at this point it's unconfirmed. So it's like, there's like,
it's kind of like
out there that.
Oh, sorry. We grow up with science trying to, in a way, it makes us feel safe, right? Because these things are, the things that we're taught are, demonstrated for us, and it helps us, like, feel anchored in something like that. But the further you go down the path, you actually start finding out how much we don't know.
It's like, we don't know. We may never know. We may, but we don't. So it's like, it's just sort of like, but kind of accepting uncertainty is probably one of the hardest things for a human being to do.
But we have learned from all of our physicists, every physicist and scientist that I admire, we have learned that reality is uncertain. So we just have to embrace it. We just have to embrace chaos, like Grant Morrison told us. And Fable says, I think we're heading more towards Ridley Scott's Alien. Actually, our first contact with alien life would probably be something more like that, where we're sending spaceships out to like salvage people. It's a blue collar situation. We don't care about the lives there. You know what I'm saying? That's a scary thought. Anyway, let's end on a positive note. Brian, do you have what's the last any last thoughts or questions you have for Rich, brother?
Well, I don't know, Rich, do you want to throw out your contacts on socials and how to get a hold of you and stuff like that?
Sure thing. So, my last name's Douek, and there's not a ton of us out there. So if you see an R Douek on Twitter, on Instagram, rdouek.com, that's me. Pretty much anywhere on social media that you can find an R Douek, there's a good shot that it's me. So there's your first clue. I'm most active on Twitter, so like if you want to get in touch with me, you want to ask me a question or anything, like that's probably the best place to catch me. I use it a lot more than I do like Facebook or Instagram, just because I'm writing, and if I like have like a stray thought or whatever, I'll throw it out on Twitter more than like it's not like I'm doing sketches that I can throw out on Instagram as much. And then at my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. Admittedly terrible about putting it out regularly, but I like it's not like the kind of thing that's going to pop up in your inbox every single week. But when I do have news to share, I definitely share it on my newsletter. I try to give people sneak peeks of stuff like a little bit before that goes out, like with Sea of Sorrows. I knew that we were going to be like previewing, I think, like the first 3 pages on like that was going to start going out to like press people. So I just gave it to my newsletter folks like a week early. So just like stuff like that, and like I like talking to people just about like either my stuff or comic stuff or whatever. So feel free, like follow me, reach out. I'm here. So
awesome, we're here, and Rich, you're worth it. You're worth it.
Oh, thanks, man.
Anyway, Rich, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Real quick, a couple more announcements that we have. So tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Central Time here on Pop Culture Philosophers, PCP Movie Night, My Bloody Valentine. Because guess what? It's Valentine's weekend, and some of us don't have many plans except for to watch horror movies. So we're doing My Bloody Valentine, the 1981 original, y'all, just so you know. Don't watch the remake. I mean, watch it if you want to, but that's not what we're covering. The very next night on Dylan's horror show over at Dylan's Comics, we're covering the 2001 Valentine. It's actually not that bad, honestly. It's pretty decent. If you want to watch My Bloody Valentine, it's on Amazon Prime. And by the way, Rom V is going to be here March 4th, Thursday at noon Central Time. So I hope you join us, everybody. Anyway, Rich, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really do appreciate it. Brian, thank you for joining me as well.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I have one last question. What's the cat's name?
The love appearance by the cat.
Oh, that was Izzy. Her sister Tasha is around here somewhere too, but yeah.
We're cat people. We're cat people, Rich. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she was just curious about what was going on here. So
yeah, right.
Yep.
Anyway, Rich, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. So everybody needs to go and check out Sea of Sorrows. It's available right now, 3 issues. And Road of Bones is available in trade paperback. Wailing Blade, you can probably still find if you dig around in those back issues or online. If not, there's a trade coming out, right?
Yep. I was going to say the trade will be coming out to comic stores pretty soon. Could be, I'm not sure exactly when, but I know it'll be soon. So
Y'all, if y'all haven't
keep an eye out
read
for it.
Wailing Blade, y'all really need to. And Gutter Magic is available as well out there too. So go look for all that. We had a lot of fun with you, PCP Army. Thank you so much. Everybody give a mad station to Rich. Thank him for joining us. Hopefully he'll join us again because he's got Rotobones. They've got Sea of Sorrows, and I'm ready for Skies of Blood.
Anytime.
Skies of Blood, y'all. Skies of
Winds
Blood.
of Madness.
Winds of Madness is what Brian likes. I think that actually sounds better, Winds of Madness, but you got to complete the thematic trilogy. You got to do it. Anyway.
I'll just say stay tuned. So
stay tuned, PCP Army.
Yeah.